No, I understand you. Well, yeah, it's a website to sell vape pens to people under the age of 18. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think you want to name it statutory vape. I think I actually have to go. Why don't why don't we stick a pin in this and we'll circle back tomorrow and try to come up with a better title. But I gotta go. I got my aunt just came here. She's bringing lasagna. I think I told you about that. But yeah, we'll get back to this. All right. Don't use that name. Yeah. All right. Bye. Welcome to Talk About the Passion. Tonight we're going to talk about the year 1972. We're moving along here. We're moving along kind of slow. I got rid of some stuff on my face here because some of it started falling out the other day, so I figured I'd get ahead of it. And here we are. I look like I'm 12 again. But it's like already growing back, so I don't know what this chemo stuff is doing. We're just going day by day here. Whatever they tell me to do, I do that. But when your face is coming off, you kind of want to get rid of it. But here we are, 1972. Let's kind of get into this. I've been talking about riffs, a lot on this, for as these years have started. We've only done 69, 70, and 71. But 72 is going to start with some serious riffs. But before we talk about riffs, can we just get right into it? Because I've been wanting to talk about this band forever. And this is when they start this run of records that, I think are perfect. And, their whole output, most of their output in the 70s, I think, is perfect. But, and I only got into them. The band I'm talking about is Blue Oyster Cult. And I got into them, in the early 80s when I was probably 12 or 13 with, Don't Fear the Reaper and Burning for You, the hit. And then, of course, in the animated movie Heavy Metal, there was a scene with the song Veteran of the Psychic War, which is one of my favorite Blue Oyster Cult songs, as well as just one of my favorite songs by anybody, really. This is like a perfect song. But yeah, so at 12 or 13, I got into that stuff, and then I did like the two live records that came out around the same time. So it was I think it was the live record for the Agents of Fortune tour, which was called Some Enchanted Evening, which I think not many people like that record, but I actually have maybe because it was like the first live record by them. But I have like 3 different versions of it here. We're not going to get into that though tonight. And then the record that Burning for You came off of. What's that one called? Something. Agents of Fortune, Fire of Unknown Origin. The tour for that generated a record called Extraterrestrial Live, which has stuff from, all this stuff. But I didn't hear this early stuff until I was at Rounder Records. And again, my old boss, Mike Annis, who I talked about the last time, or one of these old ones, was playing the live record, On Your Feet or On Your Knees by Blue Oyster Cult, which was this seemed to be a thing in the 70s where bands would, their first 3 records and then they do a live record. Or maybe it just happened with a few, but I know Kiss, that Alive came out after the 3rd record, Harder Than Hell, and then Rush was the first 3 records. What was the other one? Cheap Trick at Budokan, kinda, but there was that song Need Your Love that ended up on Dream Police, but that doesn't really count. I'll throw that in with this. But so this live record, On Your Feet or On Your Knees, has stuff from these first 3 records. And the one we're going to talk about today is the debut, which is just simply called Blue Oyster Cult. And as soon as I heard that live record and heard some of these songs on here, I shit my pants. No, Mike lent me his copies of the studio out of the records, probably on CD, I think at the time. And then I eventually went and got my own copies because I thought they were just so good, and I just fell in love with these first 3 records. And today we're talking about this, and then we'll obviously get on to the next 2, and and I'm sure we'll at least go up to I don't know, Cultosaurus erectus or something. I think once they got into the early 80s, it got a little spotty. But so this first record, Blue Oyster Cult, the first record on this, first song on this record, Transmaniacon MC, is sort of about, it's just this ripper, and it's got bikers, drugs, Altamont, and that this song just pulls you in immediately. And this record doesn't fall into that thing I was talking about in the last one with, the second song of a record is the best or most important song on a record. On the Lamb But Ain't No Sheep is this, mid-tempo number with these, strange lyrics that I didn't get when I heard this. But then I realized that this song ends up sort of redone later as that song, The Red and the Black, which is one of their best songs, which, the Minutemen covered, and, that Canadian Mountain Babe, that song. But those same lyrics, I think most of them, I don't know if it's they might be a little different, are in this I'm on the Lamb But I Ain't No Sheep song. And then the third song is that Then Came the Last Days of May, which was based on a true story of these, I think, three friends from New York, Long Island or upstate New York, I'm not sure, who were involved in some sort of botched drug deal in the desert in Arizona. And this song sort of goes into detail of, two of the young men were murdered, and one of them escaped and was able to, pinpoint who the people that did this were, and I think those guys were arrested shortly after. But the song is a heavy song, because it's, deals with that. It's a pretty heavy story. But it's, it's this real slow, moody song, and they still play this song. Then Came the Last Days of May. It's that one took me a while. I was never into these sort of slow, moody songs of theirs, but this one hit me at one point. And then Stairway to the Stars, which is this, weird, bloated, like rock star who, is signing autographs and, wants this girl to use his car to, mow down a crowd of people. And, it's pretty dark stuff. But then we get to side two of this record. And this is where I think the real fun on this record starts with the song Screams, which is the first one of Joe Bouchard, the bass player. His first song that he's wrote and sings. So, he's got a bunch of other ones throughout the career that we'll get to when we get to those other records. But he's sort of like the one. I think he has like one. Maybe he might have like a couple songs on some of the records, but I think maybe he's like one of those like George Harrison or what's his name and Lee Ronaldo and Sonic Youth. They'd always give him like one song on each record, or the Keith Richards sometimes would have a song on a record, and they would do that. Give the guy the spotlight for a minute. Let Mick sit down. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. But this song, Joe Bouchard, it's late. It's not a Wednesday. It's a Monday. I'm drinking espresso that I just made because I don't plan to go to sleep too early tonight. So I'm doing this. I want to talk to you guys about this shit. No, I do. So Screams is about Joe lived in the country and then moved into the city, and this is sort of about his experience moving into the city. He has a hard time dealing with the sounds of the city compared to where he came from. But this is one of these like moody, slow songs that has some cool little like descending guitar parts. I guess that's what you would call that. I played guitar for like years and I don't know any of this shit. And then the next song is another one of these sort of, and the song kind of slides right into that one. And then the next one is the fun titled She's as Beautiful as a Foot, which I think is kind of a novelty song of theirs. I love this song actually. It's got kind of like a moody, like Doors influence almost, but it just doesn't quite get there, and it's just kind of, it's just weird sort of surreal story that takes place on a subway, and I don't know, it's a strange song, especially because the next song on the record is, what some might consider sort of the quintessential BOC song, Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll, which is, literally about a city that's on flame because of, like these amplifiers are so fucking powerful that they, laid the city to waste, and, those guys, they were this woman or whatever walking around like, hey, check it out. Let's go get a root beer or whatever, something like that. But I think that's what that's about. I don't know. I've been into this stuff for a long time. And some of these songs from these early records, these first three, I did know when I was later on because some of them appeared on those live records that I was talking about before, the Some Enchanted Evening and Extraterrestrial Live. Those are good. Those are both good records. But we should move on because we got a lot to talk about here, and I could do a whole friggin' episode on Blue Oyster Cult, or I could do one on every single one of their records and talk about them for hours because they're one of my favorite bands. And maybe we'll do that someday. But 1972. The reason I almost said 1974 is because we're talking about this guy now. Yeah, you know this one. I shouldn't do that. Black Sabbath, Volume 4. Some consider this their best record. This is an NEMS pressing, and then I have another NEMS pressing here. And then I think that's just a regular American one that I probably shouldn't throw on the floor like that. And then I have that box set up there that has all the other stuff. But this record is another one of these. Like, what the hell are you going to say about this record? Wheels of Confusion, Tomorrow's Dream, which is maybe one of my favorite. Could be my, it's one of my top 3 favorite Sabbath songs with After Forever. And maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Who the hell has a top 3 Black Sabbath songs? An idiot. It's hard to do. You can't do that. Supernaut, Snowblind. And this is the record, too, that says inside, we wish to thank the great Coca-Cola Company of Los Angeles. They're not talking about the soda, okay? Just FYI. If you're younger than 18 and you're watching this, I'm joking around. They are talking about Coca-Cola. They're not Pepsi guys. They're Coke guys. But yeah, Black Sabbath, I should talk about them more because they're, one of my favorite bands of all time. Even though I just said the other one was. There's a Black Sabbath poster I'm staring at right here. I get that stuff all over the fucking place in here. And, yeah, but sometimes this like, Volume 4 is Volume 4. Like, what the hell are you going to friggin' talk about with that record? So we'll move on to something completely different. And that's Harry Nilsson, son of Schmilson. This is the one he puts out after the real popular one that had, Coconut and Jump Into the Fire. Not the Metallica song. Remember that Metallica Jump in the Fire 12-inch that had that demon on it? I need a copy of that. Frank, can you order a copy of... Hi, can I get a copy of Metallica Jump in the Fire, the 12-inch single? Yeah, the one with the demon. Yeah, just send it to my thing. Okay, thanks. Get that. We'll do an episode of that when that comes in. So this record is, I'm not a huge fan of Harry Nilsson, but this record is... This has, this has got like 2 Beatles on it. Not on the same track, but George and Ringo are on this record. Peter Frampton's on this record, I think. Nicky Hopkins and all those, those guys that are on all those 70 Stones records. But this record has some just hilarious lyrics on it. And that's kind of what sucked me into this record in particular. I liked it, and I liked the one before it. And I remember that record, The Point. Remember that record? That's one of those guys, like a guy named you would meet some girl named like Denise. And she'd be like, oh, I love The Point. And you're like, yeah, that's great. How about You'll Be Here Volume 4, St. Vitus Dance by Sabbath. Try that out. But this has, the song Joy, which is pretty hilarious. It's a country number. And then You're Breaking My Heart, which has the, You're breaking my heart, you're tearing it apart, so fuck you. And that has, that's just a funny song. So yeah, this is a cool record, I think. Yeah. ZZ Top Rio Grande Mud comes out in 1972. And not my favorite ZZ Top record, but it's got Down Brownie on it, which I think is an amazing song. Just Got Paid, though. That's the song that's song 2 on this. So there's another one of those. And that riff in that friggin' song is a perfect riff. And that song is sort of, a sort of, this also has Sure Got Cold After the Rain Fell. I like that song. Sad little number. But this record is, an introduction to what's going to happen next, which we'll talk about. I think it came out in 73, the next one, which is, considered their, best one, which is, we'll get to it. Don't worry about it. You probably know if you're watching this and you kind of know what's up. This year we also get Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, which is, that's one of my favorite records by them. I love this era of the band. And, but, this has Turn on the Run on it. And, Happy. Is there a better song than Happy? Torn and Frayed. Tumble and Dice, one of their best songs. And, I love this. I love a lot of times these bands put these, 2-record sets together. I think we're going to talk about that later. That were just sort of a mess of just a bunch of shit. And that's kind of what this is, but it works. I don't think there's any songs on this record I would take off to make it, more compact or something. I think it works exactly how it works. It's, the album is, a little over an hour long, and that's perfect. Perfect time for this record. The Scorpions' debut, Lonesome Crow, comes out in 1972. And, that's kind of a generic, to me anyway, of like that sort of early 70s hard rock stuff that bands were doing at the time. But, the standout thing on this is that it's the only record they did with Michael Schenker, which is kind of weird and hard to believe. And he's 16 years old on this. And, you listen to this record and it's got some amazing playing on here. And then, of course, I think he went right on to UFO from there. And then I think he came back to or he's played with the Scorpions years later. But I think at the time, I think he wrote one of the songs on here and they didn't credit him or something. And there was a lot of beef going on there. But he was replaced by Uli Roth, who's, that guy is out of control. When we get to some of those Scorpion records that come after this, we'll talk about his playing. Like we'll talk about a little number called "The Sails of Charon," which I'm sure you know if you're a fan of the Scorpions. You know what's up. Budgie Squawk comes out this year. He's another band that we talked about the last time. And this, I think this more is, I mentioned last time where someone once described these guys as sounding like if Rush continued on, or if John Rutsey stayed in the band, what Rush would sound like, on albums after that first one, which I think is kind of accurate. But this record's great. It has, right off the beginning, Whiskey River, the riff in that is just tremendous. I don't think I've ever used the word tremendous. That's pretty good. I'm going to write that down in my thing here. Monday, December 8th at 11:40 p.m. used tremendous for the first time to describe a budgie riff. That's good. 56-year-old man on Monday night by himself with his cat hiding somewhere. Talking about riffs on budgie albums. What are you doing? This is what I'm doing tonight. But this record is great, and it has, it has that song, "Hot as a Docker's Armpit," a docker, like a guy who works on the dock, and that's, sort of a high energy song. That's, I don't know. These guys, the Budgie is one of these bands that's, sort of underrated in the whole of, maybe the general public, doesn't know who this band is, or may just kind of know from the Metallica stuff, which is kind of, most of us, that's where we heard them first. I heard them as a kid because they were on A&M Records, and I had a connection to that. but I don't remember, liking liking it or anything. When years later when Metallica covered Crash Course in Brain Surgery off of one of the MCA records that comes out, I think it might even be the next record. That's when I first it came on my radar, and then I heard some of these records, and all of them are just filled with, I don't know, they at least this one, and I think the 3 MCA ones that came out after this are like just perfect. They're just like good hard rock essential records if you're like a hard rock fan and you want to hear some sick riffs. Check out these Budgie albums, and I swear you won't be let down. Neil Young Harvest comes out this year. Another one of my favorite records of all time. We don't need to talk about that record. Funkadelic. America Eats Its Young is the first record he did where he used the guest, what do they call it? Guest house? The house guests, which was Bootsy Collins, his brother Catfish Collins, who was a guitar player, older, kind of overshadowed by Bootsy, of course. And then another band called U.S. Soul, which included the guitar player Gary Scheider, who I think was sort of an underrated piece to Funkadelic's sound. Because, people obviously talk about Eddie Hazel, who, that's Eddie Hazel. I'm not going to disrespect him. But I think Gary Scheider, from this point on was I think this was the first time he was with the band, was sort of a key element to where they went. And I was lucky enough to see one of these Funkadelic bands that George Clinton was touring with in the 90s, and he had Gary Scheider in the band. And he was the one that, if you've ever seen videos of them live from this era, or from the 70s, through when I saw him, Gary was the guy that he's always in a diaper. So if you ever see any Funkadelic Parliament footage and there's a guy in a diaper, that's Gary Scheider. And amazing guitar player. He died, I think, in 2010. But I think a lot of what he brought to this band was, I think he wrote Cosmic Slop. So there you go. What are you going to do? Imagine being the guy that wrote Cosmic Slop. It's a tough crown to wear. So this record, it was a 2-record set, and a lot of people didn't like it because it is kind of all over the place. But I think he was sort of making a statement of just America at the time and how music and black music. So he kind of mixed a lot of black and white music on here. It is kind of all over the place, but you get the song Fillmore, Phil More, which was a Bootsy song, and it's kind of almost like a James Brown type. It sounds like a James Brown song to me, but with Bootsy singing, and it's sort of his signature style of how he, his voice is instantly recognizable, even in 1972. And he's, that personality is immediately there in 1972 that you see, years later, and up to the, the D-Light Groove is in the Heart song. Same guy you see now if you see him out, performing or being interviewed. That personality is here on this record. But I think, this isn't an essential Funkadelic record, but I think it's like a perfect bridge to the stuff that would happen after this, like Cosmic Slop and Let's Take It to the Stage and all those records, which I'm excited to talk about because I have all originals of those, and they're just awesome records. So we're going to get there next. And that's going to be exciting. Last time I missed Can, and they put out... this is another thing where I'm just an idiot. I don't know how to pronounce shit. So I'm just going to say Egg Bamyasi, which is an amazing record. Vitamin C, Soup. Yeah, I don't know. I got into them for a little while. And it's been a long time since I listened to them. So I don't really know what else to really say about them. But I do like Can a lot. In 1972, this record which I like a lot, and the one before this that I missed. But one of my other favorite records that came out in 1972, though, is, and I know I have people on here that, friends, that aren't fans of Captain Beefheart. And I understand that. I can see it's a tough sell sometimes. Some of his stuff is it's a harsh toke, man. But I think this record in Clear Spot, which I think at one point came out on like a CD that you could buy. They were together because they're kind of in the same vein. But this is one of the ones I usually recommend to people because it's got sort of it's sort of a bridge, to use that term again, from like his old sort of more bluesy stuff to the weird stuff. But it doesn't get too, there's none of that Trout Max replica, like real harsh stuff to get through, which I think I talked about on the first episode, well, the first of one of these year things. But When It Blows, It Stacks, that's one of my favorite songs of his, and Click Clack, which is a lot of really cool videos of that you can find online. But this record, yeah, this is one of the ones, if you want to get into Captain Beefheart, I always would say start with this one and then go to Clear Spot and then maybe go backwards, and because there's some weird stuff that happens. But then there's stuff where you think it's going to be really weird, but it's really just kind of just a bunch of sort of dirty blues type stuff. But yeah. Captain Beyond debut comes out in 1972 with Rod Evans from the guy that Ian Gillan replaced in Deep Purple, the vocalist, and I love that guy's voice. And I always thought that he wouldn't have fit on those the records that came after that. But this is a cool record, and this is one of these ones I got into sort of way later on. Probably in the last 20 years or something, I discovered these guys, and I love this record. It's just a really cool hard rock, proto metal album, and there's some amazing riffs and songs on here, and I would highly recommend it. And speaking of Deep Purple, 1972, there's literally nothing to say about this one. I mean, Machine Head is Machine Head. I mean, Highway Star. Imagine being like, oh yeah, my band, yeah, the first song on our record, oh, it's Highway Star. Yeah, that's the first song on our new record. But last time I talked about Alice Cooper and meeting him, because my dad had a label that was reissuing music, and they reissued Deep Purple Machine Head on gold disc, I think. I don't think they did a vinyl of that. But I was tasked one day to go with him to pick up the masters for that. And I took pictures of it, so if I do, I'll put them up on the thing here. But I had those masters in my fucking car, literally with like Martin Birch's handwriting, on there. And just having that in my hand, I had that one, and another time I had the band album, the first, the one that has, the weight on it. The night they drove Old Dixie down and shit. And, oops. Having that stuff, that's the kind of stuff that gets me, like, excited. Having, like, it's like a piece of history. Like, having the actual, like, this is the tape that some guy delivered to, wherever to fucking get printed, Deep Purple Machine Head, and it's in my fucking car. I'm like, should I stop at Starbucks and run in there before I go home and leave those in the back seat of my car? Probably not. It's probably not a good idea. It's only the greatest fucking hard rock album in the fucking history. You dummy. And just go home and make coffee. Right? You don't want to risk. Imagine being the guy, I lost the masters to Deep Purple Machine. Oh, that might be a kind of a fun badge of honor, though. People like you get to know you, and then you're like, oh, yeah, by the way, yeah, I'm that guy. Yeah, you probably heard that story. Yeah, that was me. I needed the pumpkin spice lattes had just come out at that time, so yeah, I had to go in. You could always blame like your wife too. If she wanted a latte, I had to. All right, take it easy. Let's move on. Deep Purple, Machine Head. What the fuck else am I going to say about that one? So let's move on to War. The World is a Ghetto. War are another one of my favorite bands. I have all of their records here somewhere. Cisco Kid. But the song "The World is a Ghetto." I like the stuff they did with Eric Burden. Was pretty cool, but this record in particular, and Why Can't We Be Friends are my favorites. Just it reminds me of Los Angeles. It just has that feel to it. Like, I don't think this band could be from anywhere else. Yeah, just one of my favorite funk rock bands. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. How about Nazareth? Razamanaz. Have you ever heard of Nazareth? Look at the inside of that. Remember when rock albums look like that? Remember that shit? Now it's a guy in a sweater talking about his cat or whatever. Yeah, I'm just talking about my cat. For this record, Nazareth, I like this record. I like Expect No Mercy, which we'll probably get into. That's a really cool record. But these guys like tricked you because sometimes the albums would have like, but even that, like you look at that and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be sick. And then, there's a bunch of like bluesy stuff on here. But the song, Razamanaz, is great. The Meatmen covered it on the War of the Superbikes record. I think they did a pretty good straight up cover of this song. But my song on this record is Sold My Soul, which is this like doomy, really heavy song. And it always, this is a record I didn't know when I was like a kid. They were on A&M and we had these records at the house, but I didn't really listen to them because I didn't really know what the hell it was. And I think that song Love Hurts that they covered was their big thing. So I was like, You'd see these like skulls and shit on the album cover, and then you'd hear Love Hurts, and you'd be like, what is this? That's how they would trick you. Remember like Molly Hatchet would do that? You'd be like, oh, this must be metal, and then they're like, we're flirting with disaster. And that guy, I like that guy. I like their cover of Dreams, Allman Brothers. Maybe we'll throw Molly Hatchet on when we get to 1979 or whenever that came out. Oh, no, we won't. We're not going to do Molly Hatchet. But they would trick you because they had those covers, and you would think it's like the Grateful Dead would get you. Yeah. What else came out this year? This is a band. It's kind of like a band that's like one of my favorite bands, but I never really talk about them because none of my friends really like them. But NRBQ, they're one of these sort of cult bands where this is the album that came out in 1972 is Scraps, and this album has Scraps and Work. It has two albums on it, Scraps and Workshop. But Scraps is the one I was going to talk about here because it has the song RC Cola and a Moon Pie. But these guys are one of those bands where, their fans talk about them in the band themselves. They're the greatest live band of all time. And that's sort of like one of those like bar bands. And I only saw them a few times way later. But they have a lot of great live records. And they do shit like where it's like, I don't know, they're just like, they write these like perfect pop songs, but then they'll cover like Rocket Number 9 by Sun Ra or something. Just a really eclectic, cool band. It's been around forever, and they're still around. It's not all the same guys. But Scraps has just some of their best songs on here. Howard Johnson's got his Hojo working, Magnet, Mona. But yeah, I don't know. They're just one of those bands that I got into in the 90s, and I have I have most of their stuff, and it's just like a good rock band. If you like rock music and just like, I don't know, there's nothing like special about them, I don't think. Well, they're a special band, but yeah, nothing groundbreaking really, but an amazing band nonetheless. Check them out if you don't really, a lot of people don't really know NRBQ. But yeah, the New Rhythm and Blues Quintet, something like that. So let's end this, because I feel like I've been talking for a long time. It's almost midnight. I don't know when I started this. The last two we're going to talk about is, a guy I've been talking about. I talked about here a little bit, I think, on the first one, and he put out a couple records this year. But one of these is sort of has a significance to what's happening in my life right now. But so Zappa put out these two records in 1972, Waka Jawaka and the Grand Wazoo. And these are when he was in a wheelchair for a little while. Because someone pushed him off the stage in England, I think. And so he was in a wheelchair for a little while and wasn't touring, and recorded a lot of these records. And these ones are a little more jazzy. There's a lot of horns on them and that kind of thing. And I wouldn't recommend these to someone like getting into him. I mean, maybe this one's a little harder, I think, to swallow. But they're mostly instrumental stuff, but it's a lot of real jazzy stuff. But the thing I'm talking about with in relation to my situation right now is, they talk about, music healing people, or, helping you, when you're in crisis or something. And when I found out I was diagnosed with cancer on September 15th of this year, which I guess at this point was 3 months ago. For a few days there, that was like a harsh reality to sort of absorb, and because it also wasn't, I didn't know how serious it was on that first one, so I was still sort of up in the air with what was happening there. So there's a lot of times when I would come home from work and play music. And I read a review of this record, because I wasn't that familiar with this one, the Grand Wazoo. I've sort of gotten into these other eras of Zappa over the last few years, because I've always been a big fan of his, but now I've been getting into sort of a lot of the stuff that I just ignored for years. Like these two records are, I love these records now, even though I just told you not to buy them if you're trying to get into him. So stay away from these. These are only for VIP fans. When you get to Weasels Rip My Flesh, let me know, and then we'll ease you into this one. Just kidding. Do what you want. These are easy to find. They're cheap. Or you can listen to them on your thing. But this one, the last song in this record is called Blessed Relief. And it's a sort of spacey, laid-back fusion jazz type thing. It's only like 7 minutes long or something. But this song sort of helped me. I don't know, it's just this mellow song. It's got George Duke. His keyboards sort of lay the foundation of this song. And it's got like these, muted trumpets on there that kind of remind me of like, incidental music in like 70s TV shows or films, you know what I mean? And then, Ainsley Dunbar plays drums on this, that guy, that guy's fucking resume. He's played on Rebel Rebel by Bowie. He played on, he's on that Whitesnake album, the comeback one. In the Still of the Night, he was on a bunch of Journey albums. Worked with like Michael Schenker, like later on, and UFO later on. But yeah, he's on this. And but it's just like it's a mellow song, and it definitely helped like ground me. It's like 7 minutes of, and it's not like, yeah, I always got high and played this song. I mean, I probably did, but it's not just that. It's a Blessed Relief. Just give it a go and see if it has the same effect on you, because it is just this sort of laid back thing that helps. That's helped me throughout this. So yeah, sometimes music helps you, and this is one of those times, and one of those songs that does that for me. With that said, I'm gonna sign off here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching this.